We're continuing where we left off yesterday in the Mimer in Torah Or from the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, that he was the author also of the Tanya and of the Shulchan Aruch that he wrote, book of compilation of Jewish law. And he was the founder and the father of Chabad Hasidut, which Chabad Hasidut, the idea is trying to understand God in a way that brings us to love and fear God and do the commandments with love and fear. And of course, with a deeper level of faith. And he says surrender to the creator of the universe. We do the so here now the Rebbe is explaining, like all the Maimorim, like all the speeches of Chabad, he's explaining God. But God, interestingly enough, he creates everything. So God creates everything. That's pretty nice. He creates the stars and skies and all these nice things, and the birds and the rivers, wind, all the colors, sounds. But then it starts getting a little bit nasty because God also, if he creates everything, so he creates evil. And not only does he create evil, but he creates it every instant and he creates every detail of it. In other words, God is giving life and existence to everything that exists, including evil. And in some ways, and everything he's creating because he wants it. So God wants there to be evil in the world. So, I mean, what is evil? Evil is basically selfishness. Selfishness. The person thinks about himself. He doesn't think about anybody else. And that really is the root of all evil. People think about themselves. Everything in the world can be used for the creator, for what it's being created for, if you're thinking about the creator, creator. But if you're just thinking about yourself, it means that you don't believe that there's really a creator. You don't think there's anybody creating you, right? Everything is wonderful, a creation and etc. of God and the creator until it comes to me. Then all of a sudden, there's no creator. Why? Because I don't feel that there's a creator. I don't feel that there's a creator. Not only that, I have all these conflicting urges and ideas and things that conflict with the creator. Creator says I should do this, but I don't want to do it. I feel good. I feel good smoking my cigar on Shabbos. Now, it's forbidden to smoke a cigar on Shabbos. It's forbidden to light a match on Shabbat, but I like it. So who's the boss? And it also says you're supposed to get pleasure on Shabbat. So come on. So there we have conflict. And to the degree where, if the conflict becomes too connected to reality, the Jewish people are saying, listen, this is not just the Jewish religion. This is reality. There is no other reality. Right? A Jew is not, God who's creating you does not want you to light a fire on Shabbos. This is not just the rabbis say. This is God himself saying that you should not light. And there's also commandments for the non-Jews. And now it starts to really get nasty because the non-Jews are saying, hey, who are you? You keep to your own religion and I'll keep to my religion, but don't tell me what to do. You say, listen, I'm not telling you what to do. This is God. God is creating you. He's telling you what to do. Oh, you're a representative of God, huh? Yes, that's right. The Jewish people are representatives of God. And the Torah is God's directions. And throughout the generation, there's been all sorts of enemies, the atheists and the church and the different, religions and things like this that are coming with. And there's always been, how do you say, traitors within the Jewish people. And they've always tried to destroy this good Judaism, godliness. So here we have then, where did this all begin? This thing began. In a small way, it began with Abraham. That Abraham started going around and breaking the idols and telling everybody there's only one God. But it really came to a head over here with Yitzchak, with Yaakov and Esau, twin brothers. Twin brothers. They were both sons of the same mother, the same father. They had the same upbringing. They had totally different natures. But Esau was brought up in a totally, godly house. He knew what he was supposed to do. But nevertheless, he not only did not do it, he opposed it. And strangely enough, Yitzchak, his father, seemingly agreed with this because he wanted to give him this big blessing. And Yaakov had to make all these tricks in order to steal the blessing away from Esau. God willing, we'll learn about that today in the Chumash class. So here in Chassidut, because he's talking about God, so let's look at this from God's point of view. Let's look at this from the Creator's point of view. The Creator's point of view. God wants there to be a world, and because he wants there to be a world, so he wants there to be, this is not heaven. Heaven is, there's no bad up in heaven. That's why heaven is like this, ideal sort of state where you feel godliness, because there's no bad, there's no opposition. But there's no free will also, there's no serving God. God, so to speak, in heaven, he's serving you. But it's God that's serving you. Here in this world, you want to be God, and you want to serve yourself. I want to be God, and I want to serve myself. And no, it's supposed to be that there, in this world, you feel that there is God, and I want to serve God. That's the Jewish feeling. That's Yaakov. But Esav said, no way. If I'm in this world, I'm serving myself. I want it all, and I want it now. That's Esav. How does that exist? What do you mean, how does it exist? God creates it. So now the Rebbe is explaining a very deep Kabbalistic principle, how God does it. Let's look at it behind the curtains, right? On the surface, we just see there's bad and there's good, there's Torah and there's opposite of the Torah. But what's going on behind this? How can there be something opposite of the Torah? Says the Rebbe like this. God put us in the world in order to transform the world. The example of that is in the Holy Temple. In the Holy Temple, they made sacrifices. That took a regular animal and it elevated it and made it into a creation, into a commandment. Took part of the creation and devoted it to the Creator. But there was something else also in the Holy Temple. There was incense. And the incense, there was, interestingly enough, 11 ingredients. 11, says the Rebbe, corresponds to evil. 10 is the number of good. God has what's called 10 sfirot, 10 aspects of godliness. The Jewish people are in God's image, 10 aspects of godliness. And eventually that reveals in every person. Where does it say that man is made in God's image? By Noah, made in God's image. But evil has what's called 11 aspects to it. Why 11? Because evil on its own can't exist. There can't exist something that's against God. There has to be something that connects it, something sort of in the middle that connects bad to good. Because good is godliness, and that enlivens all the bad. God enlivens everything. So there has to be this 11th aspect, and that's the 11th ingredient in the incense, because the incense comes to transform bad to good, to death to life, bitterness to sweetness, dark to light. That's what the idea of the incense is supposed to be. That's why there's 11, in order to transform even this 11th aspect of evil. When that's transformed, then evil won't exist anymore. There won't be any more murder in the world, or addictions and confusion and depression. All these things won't exist, and lust and anger. So how are we going to get rid of this? How are we going to get rid of all this bad stuff in the world? How are we going to get? That's why God put it here. God put it here so that we would, to some of it eradicate, but mostly to transform bad into good. Transform bad into good. I mean, how can you transform bad into good? Just simply, let's take a person who's a drug addict, right? So if you can get that person to stop listening to his urges to take that drug or drink that drink or whatever he does, or punch that person in the mouth or steal that money, whatever he does, if you can just get him to resist that urge, so that's already eradicating the urge. And then he can say, okay, now you're a human being. You don't go around drinking all the time. What are you going to do with all of your personality? Let's do good things. That's called transformation. So it's a process. So the basis of this evil, this connection from good to evil to good, this is Esav. Esav was a Jew. Esav was this connecting power. The Jews are connected to God, Esav is this connecting power, the power that connects godliness to evil and keeps evil in going. That's what it keeps it creating. That's what we got up to last time. Said the Lavona was that was the 11th ingredient in the incense. This is what joins the 10 sphirot, the 10 aspects of holiness, to shine into the 10 aspects of what do you call it, of impurity, misavusa, of dirtiness, foulness, of evil. Right. So how does God keep the evil going? So he says that's the process that keeps it going. There's this one connecting aspect. That's the 11th aspect. B'hu Reisha de Esav. And this is what we said before, that this is the head of Esav that is buried in together with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is the good aspect. This is like the plug that you can plug the evil into the electricity. The electricity in this case is God. He's creating everything. The plug, that's Esav. Esav's head. Hainu b'chinas makif. This is the surrounding level which is above makif. In other words, makif means that it receives from an aspect of God which there's no good or bad. Makif means it surrounds, it encompasses, it's undefined. And this is can be included in the chest of Yitzchak, of his father Yitzchak, in holiness. Therefore, from this aspect of this makif, this surrounding level, Esav was asking his father all these Torah questions. How do we take tithes from salt and from straw? That was in a surrounding level, but an inner level, and it was the real nature of Esav, what was in his heart. Esav's heart was to do evil. Esav's heart was, but his head, he understood how to do good. That's why you can get people who are like con artists, right? You call it the tricking Ponzi scheme people, right? So when they're really very crooked and evil people, you got this guy, right, a couple of years ago, I talked about him. He stole like billions of dollars, a Jewish guy. He stole billions, they say hundreds of billions of dollars from all these Jewish charitable organizations and yeshivas and things like that. And he was such a nice person and such a friendly person and such a intelligent person. Everybody thought he was his best friend, and he was this, and he was just a tremendous liar. In other words, in his heart was evil, but his head was good. His head was good. And that was the thing of Esav. Esav was in his head, right? He was connected to godliness and to Torah and the commandments and everything. But his heart wasn't. There's another example of this, and I mean, God will forgive me if I'm wrong, but there was Yerovam ben Nevat. Yerovam ben Nevat, he said he was an incredible genius, a holy person, to the degree that when it came time, we talked about this before, there was a big argument among the Jewish people. We remember we talked about this yesterday with the first temple was destroyed because the leaders were bad, and the second temple was destroyed because the people hated each other. So Yerovam ben Nevat, he was such a genius that when it was necessary to divide the kingdom of Israel after King Solomon died, so he was chosen to be the king of the 10 tribes that separated. He had a head that was nothing like him. You can't find anybody today. He knew all the secrets of the Torah. He knew everything that there was to know. And nevertheless, he built 2 golden calves, and he threw those 10 tribes into just idolatry and decadence, because his head was good, but his heart was terrible. So because of his good thing of his head, so everybody says, well, he's our king, he was chosen by God, he must be okay. So everybody did evil. Okay, how do we fix this up? Know it's known. So that's what Yitzchak wanted to do. Yitzchak knew who Esav was. He knew who he was. He knew how evil he was, but he also knew about the good that was in him. He knew about the head of Esav, that it was good. And he thought that he could pull out this good. Know that's known. It's known that how does God enliven these, what's called the 10 crowns of evil, all of the bad, negative things in the world? How does God enliven it? That it swallows up life force, it swallows up godliness, and it vomits. Ve'et asher shalat adam ba'adam. It's a time when one person can rule over another one, l'ralo, for bad. What's going on? It's like it is now, right? All the leaders of the world go crazy. Everybody has to take shots. Everybody's in quarantine. Everybody, there's the world globalization. There's no individuality. The countries, the leaders are telling everyone what to do. Right? Everything is becoming just bizarre and decadent. There's no men. There's no women anymore. There's no humi penei nitzutzos. How is it that it can? Because God wants that evil should have an ability to rule. And why? Why does he want this evil? Where does it get its power? Because there are sparks of holiness there. In the beginning of the creation of the world, there was what's called the breaking of the vessels. We're going to learn about this in Parshas Vayishlach in the end. It says they were the kings of Esav, that they ruled and they died, etc. This is a whole process of creation, which is called the breaking of the vessels. God wanted there to be evil in the world. He didn't want it to succeed so much. He wanted there to be evil in the world so there would be a free choice. But as soon as Adam ate from the tree, and in the ensuing generations where they embraced this evil more and more, so it got more and more and more powerful. But the fact of the matter is that in this evil, there is sparks of good. In the world is contained a lot of good. Adam had to work in the world and bring it up. But as soon as man sinned, so this good became more and more and more covered. Also because of the sin of the tree of knowledge, like it says in the book of Gilgul, the book of the Arizal talks about the book of reincarnations, who Adam was incarnated into it because of his sin. Therefore, because there are these sparks of good that were in the world and put in the world purposely for man to elevate, and when man sinned, so he covered them up. But these diamonds of sparks of meaning that for them the whole world was created, they still are there. And that's what's keeping this evil alive. Shu b'sod galus, this is the secret of exile. Kamay Morazal, like it says, Lo Gala Yisrael, Elo Kadei Lahosif Aleim Gerim. Says the Jewish people, they were exiled into the world in order to bring converts. What does it mean, converts? That inside of these converts, sometimes a person is a convert, a ger, there's a Jewish soul, and it's very, very holy, but it fell down very low. V'kein be'esav, and also in Esav, hoyu nitzutzos, there were these sparks that were going to come out. Rabbi Meir, he was like the offspring of converts. Unkelus translates the Torah. Shemaya v'Avatolian, Ovadia, the prophet Ovadia. All of them were converts or direct descendants of converts. So Rabbi Akiva, and with these sparks of goodness, Esav tricked his father Yitzchak. Yitzchak, and Yitzchak knew what was going on. He wanted the Hotzim imenu b'atzma. He thought he could remove these sparks of holiness on his own. Shelo al yidei Yaakov, not by means of Yaakov. Because also now, Chayal Bola v'yaki eno. Also now, the forces of evil in the world, selfishness in the world, they're swallowing up godly energy. God is keeping them alive, but they use it improperly, and it turns into vomit. Rock. So Yitzchak thought, I got to do something, and I have to do it quick. I have to save the world. I am going to transform Esav. I'm going to bring the good sparks that are hidden in Esav. I'm going to bring it out. So, but you can't do it. It was wrong. Rak shu al yedei Yaakov. Only Yaakov can do it. The Yaakov is what's called Zeranpin. He's the aspect of God which is called God's emotions, small faces. Shakala oros shalomayla nichlalim bo. That all of the lights from above are included in it, and this is clothed in the world of Yetzirah. That's called the lower Gan Eden, and the weekdays. Bechinas avdo zaken beso. That's like Eliezer coming down into the world, like Eliezer sent, Avram sent Eliezer to find a bride, right? So Eliezer, this is the ability of God to come down into the world. Misham ulabrer. So that's the thing of Yaakov. So again, the whole purpose of man, Adam, to come into the world was to fix the world up. God purposely made the world challenging, that Adam was supposed to come into the world and serve God, avoid bad, do good, and by means of this, to put everything in its proper place, like a big puzzle. We talked about this before. So you go to the store and you buy a puzzle. It says 50,000 piece puzzle, right? Something you really enjoy. It shows on the cover a big, a beautiful landscape or something like that with boats and a sunset. You think, okay, put the 50,000 pieces, a lot of pieces. You open the thing up and it's got 5 million pieces in it. And they all sort of look the same. Wow, how am I going to put this thing? What is this? A mistake? Maybe they get, it says, no, you look at the instructions and it says this is this piece of 50,000 piece puzzle, but from these 5 million pieces, only 50,000 are relevant to the puzzle. All the rest are not relevant. Avoid them. So that's what Adam was sent into the world to. It was come to put the puzzle together. Everything is here. It was all good. It was all there. He just had to look carefully and see what to avoid and what to do. And that would make a big meaning. Like you put the puzzle together, all of a sudden you see this beautiful picture. You can put it in a frame, put it up on your wall, right? It's really interesting. People come in and say, oh, that's a nice picture. Hey, it's a puzzle. Wow, you put this whole thing. That's really amazing. Look at this, right? That's what the world is supposed to be. The world is supposed to be this amazing puzzle you put together. That's the idea of Mashiach, to put inform the world and put everything in its proper place. Well, that's what Adam was supposed to do. And when Adam did not avoid what he was supposed to avoid, so this threw confusion into the whole world. It's like trying to make the puzzle and putting a couple of wrong pieces in there, right? It's just never going to work. The whole thing is never going to work. And then especially if you say, well, if I put a couple bad pieces, I'll put a couple more, right? I'll make my own picture. And let's say instead of that, I'll make a picture. Whoa, this comes out to be a big picture of a dragon. I don't like that. Let's try the other picture. No, this picture doesn't come out. It's a big picture of like dead bodies. Well, that's not good. I don't want that. I'll make another picture. And you just keep making these terrible, atrocious pictures because you're using the wrong pieces. So the idea is that Adam, as soon as he ate from the tree, he started using the wrong pieces, and the whole world just became this atrocity. Until the God even had to make a flood, and that also didn't help things. It helped a little bit. Noah came along. He gave a potential to all mankind to fix themselves up. Noah. That's why the non-Jews are called the sons of Noah, because they're direct relatives of this amazing, brave, holy person called Noah, Ish Tzaddik. But nevertheless, that still was not, that was the ability to not get involved in the bad, Noah, but to do the good, to put the puzzle together. The first person to do that was Abraham. And then came Yitzchak. So now it starts to get serious because Abraham gave birth to a son that wasn't so good, because Abraham was too much on the side of kindness. And Yitzchak, although his job was to fix up the world, but he also gave birth to a son that was not so good, and that's Esav. So Yitzchak said, I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to give one big blast of holiness. I'm going to take out these sparks from Esav. I see that the head of Esav has potential holiness. I'll fix him up. He says it can't be done. It can't be done fast. It only can be done by Yaakov, a long process. Right? This was 4,000 years ago. But Yitzchak, he wanted to do it quickly, not by the means of Zer Anpin, not by the means of the emotions of God. Zer Anpin, the emotions of God, that's a gradual process. The question is always asked, if God creates the world and he creates it from nothing, then why did he schlep it out 7 days? Why didn't God just create the world in 1 second? He could have certainly done it. No problem, right? If he created one atom from nothing, nobody even knows what nothing is, created one atom from nothing, and it took him no time. So for certain he can develop that atom to be one whole world in also no time, right? It's much harder to make something from nothing than to make a lot of somethings from just one something, right? To take one and multiply it by, a billion to the billionth power, right? That's amazing. But to take nothing and to make it into one, you can't do it. It's impossible. Mathematically, physically, whatever. You can't take nothing and make it into something. And that's what God did. So God could have made the world in one instant. Why did he take 7 days? It says, because that goes according to this spiritual principle, which is called God's emotions. There's 7 emotions. In Kabbalah, it's called Zeir Anpin, small faces. It's another name for God's emotions. That's a gradual process. And that was the aspect of Yaakov. Yaakov was balance. Yitzchak was too much on the side of power, Gevura. Yitzchak had these tremendously high powers. We'll talk about it. So it couldn't be done by, but Yitzchak, he wanted to fix up Esav quickly, not by means of this long process of God's emotions, Zeir Anpin. There should be just revelation of high lights, high godliness into Esav himself. He wanted to give him an extra revelation of light. In order to take good from bad, you have to have a very high light to do it. In order, by means of this, you can take out all of the sparks which were there. That's why we see these young boys, right, going in the streets and putting tefillin on older people, on businessmen and everything they do it. How can they do it, right? Sometimes there's people in Israel and America, people that are, just totally thrown away from Judaism. They have tattoos. They're married to a non-Jewish woman. They have the drug addicts. Who knows? Every possible thing you can get, right? They're in the church. They're everything possible you can imagine bad. And some kid stops in the streets. Excuse me, sir, are you Jewish? Would you like to put on tefillin? The guy says, oh, okay. All of a sudden, how does it happen? Because these young people, they're connected to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe is this tremendous, tremendous power of good. In order to take the sparks, the goodliness, in order to reveal good from bad, it has to come from a tremendously, tremendously high place. And Yitzchak thought he could do it quick. That's what Yitzchak, we see that by the blessings that Yitzchak gave to who he thought was Esav. He didn't know that it was Yaakov. He didn't know. Yitzchak gave the blessings and he said, Vayiten lecha Elokim, that God will give you mital shamayim, from the dew of the heaven. This is the dew of the heaven. This is a level of Kabbalah, which is explained in Kabbalah, called Tala Da'atika. This is what's called the dew of heaven. This is the dew of this inner level of what's called God's crown, that this is what's going to enliven the dead in the future. This is what enlivened the Jews at Mount Sinai when their souls jumped out of their bodies. They heard God speak. Their souls jumped out. God enlivened them with this dew. The natif lazer anpin, this is what it drips down into this aspect of zer anpin. That was the aspect of Yaakov, this level of heaven, tal hashamayim. But Yitzchak wanted to draw down this tal, this dew, which enlivens the dead directly to Esav. And he gave him also this another level, which is called Mishmanei. You look and see, look what it's, we're learning that today. The blessings that Yitzchak gave to who he thought was Esav. Afterwards, it was revealed that it wasn't Esav. When Esav came in, he said, you got a blessing for me. He said, who are you? I just gave a blessing to you, didn't I? So he gave him this blessing. May God bless you with the dew of heaven. So this is the dew that's going to enliven the dead. And from the oil of the earth, the oil of the earth. Shemen, this oil, this is an aspect of what's called Chachma, God's life force, in translated wisdom. Like it says, Abba Yisad Brata, that says the father that is the foundation of the daughter. The daughter, that's this physical world. And Abba, that's God's essence, wisdom, God's life force. That it enlivens, this is what's the dew, the oil, the highest aspect of God, comes down to the earth. So that's what Yitzchak wanted to do. He wanted to draw down this aspect of the dew of heaven, which this is the dew which is going to Atika, this is dew of Atik, the inside level of crown. This is the level of heaven. And he also wanted to draw down this level of the oil, the essence of life force, which is the God's Chachma. He wanted to draw this, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. that by means of this, it would raise up the sparks, just like we see, for instance, when the sun shines in the morning, in the heat of the day, then all of a sudden all the moisture goes up. That's dew. That's the dew of the earth. Like it says in the beginning of creation, when it says there wasn't no rain in the world, and Adam, when he started to work on the ground, then it said that a mist went up from the ground. What is it called? The evaporation went up from the earth. the dew evaporated, went up. The Cain also Cain bener, just like a okay, maybe this is the kid, like a small light in front of a big torch. Sho'evet or nerot, that the small light is drawn into and it joins the big light. So like when the sun shines on the ground, this draws up the dew. Also the same thing, a small light, you put it next to a big light, so it pulls the small light over. The big light pulls the small light over. Also, that's what Yitzchak thought. If he just gave a big blast of holiness, of life, like it was something like what it was in Mount Sinai, this big blast, like it was going to be on Mount Sinai in another whatever is 400 years, then there would be a tremendous revelation from above. He thought it would pull out all of the holiness from Esav. It would make Esav come to his senses. Just like the dead come back to life by means of this dew, or the sun, when it shines on the ground, it brings the dew out. Or when a big light draws a smaller light to it, a big flame, he thought he could gather up all of the sparks that fell below. Yitzchak thought, now is my opportunity. I can do what Adam didn't succeed in doing, what Adam failed in, and what Abraham began, to draw up all these sparks to reveal the good which is concealed in the bad, to take out the good parts from the puzzle, separate the good parts of the puzzle from the bad parts. But Yitzchak had really good intentions. In other words, according to this, Yitzchak knew how bad Esav was. But ha'orazu tzorech liot b'tosfos v'riboy davka b'chinas bracha. But it has to be in a way of a blessing. Shehu l'mayla miseder ishtalshus. This was above the creation. Shelafi seder ishtalshus loya Esav kadai. According to normal way of looking at things, Esav could not have accepted these blessings. Something like the Jews were in Mount Sinai. When God revealed this to them, they all died. It was too much. That's what Yitzchak said, I will bless you before God. What does it mean before God? Higher than God. Yitzchak therefore wanted to draw down to Esav himself, not by means of Yaakov, because he saw Yitzchak looked at Esav from above. Milamayla lamata. And he looked at it like from this aspect of the 11th ingredient of the incense. Shu b'chinas makif, from this surrounding level where there's no good and there's no bad. That's where Yitzchak was looking at Esav from. Therefore, he wanted to draw this tremendous revelation to Esav, and by means of this to heal him, make him come back to his senses. But he made a big mistake. Yitzchak, his intentions were good. And in fact, that's all he knew. Yitzchak was not balanced in that way. That's why Esav was his son, Yitzchak. That's why Yitzchak produced Esav, because of this imbalance. Yitzchak was more on the side of severity, of power. That's what we started yesterday's, the previous month. She'ein Esav kadai, Esav could not accept this blessing. Only through Yaakov, a long process. Shelafi she'im hoya, because if this blessing would have been drawn down to Esav, Yivla, then it would be swallowed up, God forbid. Kimikodim. Esav wanted this blessing. He wanted it desperately. Why? Because he wanted this additional energy to do more evil. Or Esav klum, or either that or it would destroy him totally. He would just become so powerful and whatever that it would just destroy him. And that's not what the purpose of the world is. The purpose of the Jews is not to destroy the evil. Some evil has to be destroyed. I mean, maybe it'll destroy on its own. But the idea is that to elevate it. To transform darkness to light and bitterness to sweetness. You can't do this except by means of Yaakov. Yaakov is balance. It's a long process. That's what we call Zer Anpin, God's emotions. The emotions of holiness, Al Yadei, Al Yadam, by means of them, Yevorim, Esav, then you can refine Esav, Yechol B'Kedusha. So Esav wanted this big blessing, right, because he thought that by means of this, it would give him power. Who knows what he would be able to do? Like you say, he wants it all and he wants it now. As it was now, he didn't have it all and he didn't have it now. He figured he'd go to Yitzchak, he would get everything, and then he would use this blessing for evil like he wanted to. Too much evil, it would destroy him. Or maybe not. Maybe he would destroy everything else. He didn't care. And therefore, Yitzchak agreed to finally, in the end, he agreed that he saw that he was wrong. Yitzchak saw he was wrong, and he agreed that Yaakov was right. That's why he said, LeEsav hine mishmenei ha'oretz. Therefore, to Esav, he said, I will give you a blessing. I'll give you a little bit. Mishmenei, a little bit. If you see, excuse me, what happened? Yaakov came into his father Yitzchak, and Yaakov was disguised. Yaakov's mother, Rivka, disguised him so that he would look like Esav, feel like Esav. Yitzchak was blind. And he fooled Yitzchak. And Yitzchak gave him these big blessings, like we said, from the dew of the heaven and the oil. And he came. And then Yitzchak left. As soon as he left, then Esav came in. He had a hard time finding this food that his father wanted. And his father said, here I am, Dad. And Yitzchak said, what, you were just here. I just gave you the blessing. Who's just here? So what do you mean? He said, I just gave blessings. That wasn't to you? I said, oh, yeah, my brother came in. He stole the blessings. Haven't you got any blessings left for me? So he said, I'll give you a little blessing. Yitzchak said to Esav, from the oil of the earth, I'll give you a little bit of this oil. And Yaakov, he said, and with an additional vav. In other words, an addition. Hainu, namely, mitamtzis anishar mishemen and nimshach ala oretz, from just a little bit of this oil that was drawn down to Yaakov, I'll give to you. Sham yeh moshavecha. Penim yesu mital l'shamayim, from what's left over, the dew of the heavens will be drawn down to you also. Aval eno ella me'al. It'll only be in a surrounding way alone. Right? What does this surrounding level mean? Just quickly, surrounding level. Like I heard from my teacher, Rabbi Mendel Futafas, he said that the difference between the Russians and the Germans, they're both evil and they were both murderers. He said, but the Russians, like the Cossacks or whatever, they would kill people all day. And then in the nighttime, they would get drunk and they would cry. I killed a baby. I killed a woman. I killed this. They would feel bad. In other words, in a surrounding way, in this sort of peripheral way, they felt that there is good and bad. And what have I done? I'm such a bad person. I'm so terrible. He has these regrets and these pangs of consciousness. Pangs of consciousness. But by the Germans, no way. They had no pangs of consciousness whatsoever. They could kill women, children all day, and then just take a little break and smoke a cigarette and clean off their boots. A little bit of blood was on their boots, clean them off, and then go back to killing people. No regrets whatsoever. So Yaakov, the head of Yaakov, that was something like the Russians I just did. There was a little bit of conscience there. A little bit of Yitzchak figured, I'll just give him a big blast of conscience, and then he'll realize, he says, but it didn't work. Yitzchak didn't work. And until Esav is fixed up, so the little bit of good that is enlivening the evil now in the world, it's in a surrounding way. It's like pangs of conscience once in a while. It says, but the only way you're going to reveal this good of Esav is if you serve the Jewish people, be subservient to the Jewish people. That's the level of Yaakov. That means Allah will be on me. It will be in a surrounding way. Davka. So maybe you can say in a certain way, that's the idea of the church. I mean, the church is like totally evil. It's totally evil. It hates Jews, but on the other hand, it's not totally evil. Why? Because the whole thing is based on the Torah. The whole idea of the church, Christianity, and the Catholics and the Protestants, it's all based on the Torah. So they understand that there is good and bad, but it's a thing that doesn't affect them in an inner way. But once in a while, a little bit it does, right? They say it's bad to kill, it's bad to steal, it's bad to take somebody else's wife, right? Why are these bad things? Because it's written in the Torah. In their book, it's not written anything that's bad or good. So their whole thing is to go against the Torah and to be free and to be this. But on the other hand, there is this conscience, there is this idea of good and bad that's there, and that they took from the Torah. They took that from Yaakov. So that's like Esav, and the head of Esav is these still a little bit of ideas, this little bit of good. Okay, now we're going to understand tomorrow when it says that when Yaakov first came in to his blind father Yitzchak, and Yaakov was disguised as Esav, so Yitzchak thought it was Esav, but he said, wow, when you came in, there was the smell of the field that God blessed. What does this mean? And that's the title of this whole mimer, and this is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Now let's go to learn Devar Malchut.